p.m., 7:02. I'd like to call this meeting of the Village Board to order. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Eater.
Here.
Trustee Enya.
Here.
Trustee Levin-Jacobson. Trustee Straw.
Here.
Trustee Taglia.
Here.
Trustee Wesley. President Skaman.
Yes, here. Thank you. So we have a quorum at this time. And do we have any non-agenda public comment? Is there any over there, just to be sure? Anyone here to speak on non-agenda public comment? Okay, thank you. And I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it's been presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Straw and seconded by Trustee Eater. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And minutes, I'd entertain a motion to approve minutes from the September 3rd, September 9th, September 16th of 2025 regular meetings of the Village Board. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Eater and seconded by Trustee Straw. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, hearing no nays, all the minutes have been approved. Oh, there's the non-agenda public comment. We do have 3 proclamations this evening. I'm grateful to see that we have people with us today to enjoy. So first, I would entertain a motion to approve a proclamation declaring Transgender Day of Remembrance annually on November 20th in Oak Park. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Straw and seconded by Trustee Eater. Whereas the Village of Oak Park is committed to fostering a community grounded in the values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and respect for all individuals regardless of gender identity or expression. And whereas National Transgender Day of Remembrance was founded in 1999 by transgender advocate Gwendolyn Ann Smith to honor the memory of Rita Hester, a transgender woman who was killed in 1998. And to memorialize all transgender people whose lives have been lost to acts of anti-transgender violence. And whereas each year on November 20th, communities across the nation around the world come together to remember, honor, and celebrate the lives of transgender and gender diverse individuals who have faced discrimination, violence, or marginalization simply for living as their authentic selves. And whereas the Village of Oak Park recognizes that transgender and gender diverse people enrich our community through their resilience, creativity, leadership, and contributions across all sectors of civic life. And whereas, while significant progress has been made in advancing equality and inclusion for the LGBTQ+ community, transgender and gender diverse individuals continue to experience disproportionate levels of violence, discrimination, and barriers to equitable access to health care, housing, and employment. And whereas the Village of Oak Park stands in solidarity with the transgender community, reaffirms its commitment to advancing gender equity, and continues to promote policies and practices that ensure safety, belonging, and opportunity for all residents. And whereas National Transgender Day of Remembrance calls upon all of us to honor those whose lives were cut short by anti-transgender violence, to celebrate the strength of those who continue to fight for equality, and to recommit creating a world where everyone can live free from fear and with full dignity and respect. Now, therefore, I, Vicki Skaman, President of the Village of Oak Park, along with the Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim November 20th, 2025 as National Transgender Day of Remembrance in the Village of Oak Park, and encourage all residents to join in reflection, solidarity, and action to advance safety, understanding, and equality for our transgender and gender diverse neighbors. Thank you. So I believe we have Sarah Corbin with us today. Amazing. If you'll tell us a little. Sure.
FP flag, including our Oak Park area chapter, we hold a vision of a world where diversity isn't just acknowledged, but celebrated. We envision a world where every individual is respected, valued, and affirmed for who they are, inclusive of sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. Our mission drives us to unite loving families with LGBTQ plus individuals and their allies, creating supportive environments where everyone can thrive. Together, we educate ourselves and our communities to become passionate advocates, ensuring that the rights and dignity of LGBTQ plus individuals are recognized by all. We're grateful to the Village of Oak Park for its declaration and public support and commitment to inclusivity for transgender and gender diverse individuals. The heartbreaking reality of anti-transgender bigotry must not go unchallenged. The right to exist, to live, is fundamental. Speaking from the heart as a parent, my heart goes out to all of the family members who have lost a loved one because of bigotry. It feels especially important that we boldly, loudly, and publicly honor people we have lost to anti-trans violence and hate, and speak out against violence anywhere we see it. Today, as so many, including our federal government, are seeking to erase transgender people, it is vitally important that we remember the people we have lost and that we continue to fight for love. I would just like to say thank you again and encourage people who are watching or in the audience, if you have the opportunity to go to a vigil on November 20th, the community right now needs all the support we can give it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sarah? Sarah, we usually take a photo. Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a photo. Does anyone else want to join me?
And I'm wearing my shirt. I forgot my flag. I took it out. Nope, this is my Just warmed it up just a little bit more.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to proclaim National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, November 16th to 22nd of 2025.
Excuse me, President
Oh.
Skinner. So yeah, we need a motion.
Oh, we did the motion. I just need to do the all in favor.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. And once we have that signed, Sarah, leave, we'll get copies. We'll get copies. Thank you. A motion to approve a proclamation for National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, November 16th to 22nd. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Very good. I've asked is it Jenna if she would please read this one out loud for us. Thank you.
National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week, November 17th through 23rd, 2025. Whereas for the past several years, the National Coalition for the Homeless and the National Student Campaign Against Hunger and Homelessness have sponsored National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week to promote an end to hunger and homelessness. And whereas the purpose of this proclamation is to educate the public around hunger and homelessness, including the shortage of affordable housing for very low-income residents, and to encourage community support for organizations that provide homeless prevention and assistance services. And whereas Housing Forward, a local not-for-profit agency, continues to offer support from the onset of a financial or housing crisis through its permanent resolution. The organization prevents homelessness whenever possible, responds to housing crises, and stabilizes people through supportive services and housing. And whereas in 2025, Housing Forward served 2,003 people. Housing Forward prevented homelessness for 252 individuals through $196,000 in direct assistance, helped 916 individuals secure independent housing, and provided 59,238 nights of shelter for 483 emergency service clients. And whereas the Village of Oak Park and Housing Forward recognize the essential community support provided by more than 320 volunteers who donated over 26,780 meals, 4,400 hours of service, and an estimated $150,000 in in-kind donations in 2025. Volunteers whose compassion and presence help ease the isolation that accompanies homelessness. And whereas Beyond Hunger, a local not-for-profit organization, works to reduce hunger by providing nutritious food, offering nutrition education, and connecting individuals and families to resources that support long-term food security. And whereas Beyond Hunger supplied 1,620,660 pounds of food to 15,937 individuals in 2025, reaching more than 67,800 people through multiple visits, including 2,416 Oak Park residents. Beyond Hunger provided nutrition education to over 16,000 individuals, delivered groceries to 487 homebound residents, and distributed 6,744 summer meals to children. Now, therefore, I, Jenna Leving-Jacobson, on behalf of Vicki Skaman, President of the Village of Oak Park and the Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim November 17th through 23rd, 2025, as National Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week in the Village of Oak Park, and encourage all citizens to recognize that there are individuals and families in our community who need the support of their neighbors and from the public and private nonprofit agencies that serve them.
Thank you. And so we do have some folks from Beyond Hunger here tonight. Come on up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Terry Miller. I'm the Director of Development at Beyond Hunger. Thank you so much for recognizing Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week and honoring our work and with this proclamation. This moment really does reflect our mission, but also the incredible need that we're seeing right now. Typically in years past this time of year, we always see a rise in need with Thanksgiving, all of the December holidays that center around family and gathering for a meal. However, this year the spike came early. On November the 1st, our pantry team served over 1,200 individuals in a single distribution. That is a record for us in our 47-year history. Much of this increased need is really because of the government shutdown and the reduced federal income support benefits. We are relieved and we are encouraged and hopeful that those SNAP benefits will be restored by Friday. But the stress of losing that kind of support really will take its toll on families in this area, and for some, it will take months for them to recover. But through it all, our amazing community has stepped up in so many ways, and we are so truly grateful. Our volunteers, our donors, and our partners have shown up in incredible ways to make sure that families have everything that they need. Thank you all, everybody in this room, for standing with us.
My name is Tara Dabney, and I'm the Director of Development for Housing Forward. We want to say thank you for everything. You have not only helped us with our fantastic interim housing and medical respite that we are getting ready to remodel, also helped us double our number of overnight shelter beds. We know the need is increasing exponentially, particularly with families. We are so very grateful to the Village of Oak Park, and to all of you who keep showing up every day, all the time. We are terrified by the HUD NOFO that dropped in the middle of the night, Thursday night, that is going to significantly, by 2/3, cut dollars for permanent supportive housing. We have 214 units that serve 253 people. That is terrifying. A lot of those are in Oak Park. We ask that you continue to look at what's going on nationally and locally. We are so grateful to work locally in this jurisdiction with this fabulous group of people. We need you more than ever as the holidays approach. As it starts getting colder, it's going to be even more frightening for folks that we have to talk to about immediately losing housing. One of our HUD grants ends in January. they're not even gonna make decisions until May. So, it's terrifying. We're in a really scary spot right now. I wish I could be as positive as Terry is, but we want you to all, stay on board with us. Keep listening, keep reading our messaging. We are grateful. Like I said, we've doubled our shelter beds, so look out if you can provide meals for shelter. We need even more people to be cooking than have been in the past. So thank you again for everything. We are grateful.
Thank you. All right, do we want to get back, go and take a photo again? Sure. Great job. Thank you so much for everything you do. Okay. Oh, I keep looking. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, Terry, everybody for coming to join us this evening. Very much appreciate you. Housing Forward, Beyond Hunger, and PFLAG. We'll be looking for those events that we can join to continue to support in partnership. So have a great evening. We entertain a motion to approve a proclamation for Small Business Saturday on Saturday, November 29, 2025. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Very good. And I've asked Trustee Wesley if he would please read this proclamation aloud.
Sure. Whereas Saturday, November 29th, 2025 is Small Business Saturday, a day to celebrate and support small businesses and all they do for our communities. And whereas Small Business Saturday was founded in 2010 and has become an important part of the holiday shopping season. According to the U.S. Small Business Administration, 33.2 million small businesses in the United States represent 99.9% of all U.S. businesses and employ nearly half of the private workforce. And whereas the Village of Oak Park, home to more than 1,300 independently owned businesses, celebrates the creativity, diversity, and economic vitality small businesses bring to our local economy and community. And whereas Oak Park small businesses continue to adapt and innovate in the face of changing consumer shopping habits, supporting local jobs, sustainability, and neighborhood vitality. And whereas residents and visitors alike are encouraged to shop, dine, and discover Oak Park, keeping dollars in the community and strengthening the local economy. And whereas the Downtown Oak Park Business Alliance's Shoppers Reward Program runs from November 1st through December 25th, 2025, offering shoppers a $50 reward for every $1,000 spent at participating businesses. And whereas the Village of Oak Park kicked off its Pick Oak Park Shop Local campaign, highlighting locally owned retailers, restaurants, and service providers throughout the holiday season at pickoakpark.com. And whereas small business corridors across Oak Park, including Downtown Oak Park, Hemingway District, Pleasant District, Southtown, Oak Park's Art District, and North Avenue, invite residents to explore, connect, and support community entrepreneurs year-round. Now, therefore, I, Corey Wesley, on behalf of Vicki Skaman, President of the Village of Oak Park, along with the Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 29th, 2025, as Small Business Saturday in the Village of Oak Park and encourage all community members to support our local small businesses on this day and throughout the year. Dated this 18th day of November 2025.
Thank you. And thank you to all of the leadership in all of our small district neighborhoods of Oak Park, downtown Oak Park, Explore Oak Park and beyond, Pick Oak Park, who was in the proclamation, our economic vitality staff, Village Manager Jackson and your Village Manager staff. I do consider our small business community the heart of our village. We're blessed to have as many local Oak Parkers who are also entrepreneurs in our community and who have invested in ways that contribute to our diversity and cultural experience. So thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Village Manager Jackson.
Thank you, President Kamen, trustees. No village manager report tonight. The calendars are posted on the agenda. If there are any questions about any of the activities reflected in the calendars for November and December, I'll answer them.
Okay, any questions from the board? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Village Board committees, does anyone have a report out? Okay, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, IGov met last week. We discussed, we had a presentation with the Community Mental Health Board, made a presentation. And anything on that?
More to come.
More to come. Okay. So the iGov has 2 members of each of the elected bodies in Oak Park that meet once a month. And so the Community Mental Health Board, you've heard about at this board table before. They're a branch of or an arm of our township government to ensure that all residents of Oak Park have access to mental health care. And so as usual, we have a vacancy report for our boards and commissions. Anyone interested in serving on a village board or commission can email Clerk Waters at clerk@oak-park.us. And for citizen commission appointments, reappointments, and chair appointments, I would entertain a motion to consent of my appointment to the Board and Fire Police, Mr. James Gates as a member, and Kate Odom as a member of the Board of Health. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Eater and seconded by Trustee Wesley. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and I appreciate all of the members of our boards and commissions. We do have, before I move on to consent agenda, I have a public comment on item K as included in the consent agenda. Yes, if you'll please, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, my name's Anna Harlan. I live here in Oak Park, 728 Carpenter. And though this is not a proclamation, it makes me so proud to be a part of this community and hear all the good work that everybody's doing. I just wanted to say that on behalf of Bayou Elementary School, I want to thank the Transportation Commissioners for taking up this issue and their thoughtful consideration to the impact that this will have on the teachers and staff at Bayou School. I want to thank Ms. Takeshi Thompson and Mr. Marlon Jackson for coming out and taking the time to walk through and problem solve with me and the school. This is a small parking change, but it will impact our staff in a very positive way. So thank you.
Thank you. And yes, the Transportation Commission takes on quite a bit, and they work very hard. They do a great job, as many of our commissions. So entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's been presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Straw, seconded by Trustee Wesley. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
Trustee Wesley,
Yes.
Trustee Eater,
Yes.
Trustee Enya,
Yes.
Trustee Leving Jacobson,
Yes.
Trustee Taglia,
Yes.
President Skaman.
Yes. Thank you. So the consent agenda has been approved. Moving to regular agenda. First, item R, I could entertain a motion to concur with the Historic Preservation Commission and adopt an ordinance designating 1144 Lake Street as an Oak Park landmark. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Enya and seconded by trustee Straw. Village Manager Jackson.
Yes, President Scanlon, trustee members, item R and S are related to each other, so I'm going to introduce Craig Failer, Development Services Director. He'll introduce this item, and he'll be supported by Village Planner Mike Bruce and Assistant Village Manager of Economic Vitality, John Malanafi. So they'll cover both items in the presentation, and you can take items R and S in turn. Craig.
Great, thank you. Craig Failer, Development Services Director. So as Manager Jackson indicated, these two items are related, Ordinance 25-165 and Resolution 25-331. So the first item is a recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission to landmark 1144 Lake Street as requested by the property owner. It should be noted that the village's landmark process is voluntary. The village will not landmark property without a owner's consent. The applicant, Mr. Nick Karras, who is here tonight, has indicated that without the village board's support of the Class L application, he does not really wish to pursue the landmarking of his building. So just have that noted. The other item under the resolution is includes support for the incentive by the Historic Preservation Commission. The Class L process was established by Cook County Assessor's Office, which establishes 7 conditions of eligibility, 2 of which include our local Preservation Commission. The first is a review by the Commission's Preservation Commission to determine if the project budget and proposed scope of work meets or exceeds the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. The second interaction is once the project has been completed, the local Preservation Commission will review the project to determine if the standards have been met. So with that, I would like to introduce Mike Bruce, who will give you an overview of the Historic Preservation Commission's review. And after Mike, John Malanafi, the Assistant Village Manager of Economic Vitality, will provide an overview of the Economic Incentive Agreement and the proposed Class L's financial significance. So, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Failer. Mike Bruce, Village Planner. Good evening, Village Board. The Historic Preservation Ordinance, adopted by the Village Board in 1994, enables the Historic Preservation Commission to recommend and the Village Board to adopt by ordinance local landmarks within the village. The property must meet one or more of 8 criteria for designation as listed in the ordinance. On July 10th, 2025, Nicholas Karras with Water Tower Realty filed a nomination form for historic landmark status of the structure located at 1144 Lake Street. On August 14th, the Historic Preservation Commission held a public hearing and approved a resolution recommending that the Village Board and Board of Trustees designate the property as a historic landmark under the Village Code because the property meets multiple landmark designation criteria set forth in the Village Code. The Marshall Fields and Company store is also over 50 years old and has sufficient integrity of location, design, material, workmanship to make it worthy of preservation or restoration. The HPC and staff ask that the board approve an ordinance amending Chapter 7, Article 9, Section 7 of the Oak Park Village Code to designate the exterior of the building located at 1144 Lake Street as a historic landmark. Relative to Resolution 25-331, the Class L Resolution and Economic Incentive Agreement, the applicant, again, Nicholas Karras, is the owner of the building and plans to renovate the Marshall Fields building, which includes concrete repair, updating the HVAC system, updating the electrical system, elevator improvements, and a store build-out to rehab the space for Barnes & Noble's bookstore. Minimal exterior work is expected for the rehabilitation of the building. The interior rehabilitation will not destroy any historic material characterizing the property while bringing an internationally known retailer to downtown Oak Park. The Village Board may provide a certified copy of an adopted resolution expressly stating that the local government, 1, finds that the Class L incentive is necessary for the rehabilitation of the property, 2, supports and consents to the granting of the incentive, and 3, approves the Local Preservation Commission's recommendation specifying that the project budget and proposed scope of work meets or exceeds the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. The HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission, recommends that the proposed scope of work meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and the Villages of Oak Park's architectural review guidelines, and supports the Class L application. Paul Rivera, a member of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I are available for questions regarding the HPC process. And John Malanaphy will discuss the Class L financial incentives.
Thank you, Mike. John Malanaphy, Economic Vitality. So I had the opportunity to work with Greg Smith on the Economic Incentive Agreement, and one of the things we did was we, one page down. Oh, sorry, thank you. So anyway, Greg and I took a look at this economic incentive package, and I've been looking at Cook County Class 6Bs and Ls and 7s for most of my career, and we determined that Baker Tilly had conducted an analysis of all the economic benefits, and so we wanted to determine the economic feasibility of the Cook County designation, and we really wanted to examine what the budget impact might be. And the property is not currently generating any sales tax revenue and has not been doing so for many years, over 12 years, I understand. And the property is not generating the maximum property tax that it could be if it were occupied. It's currently receiving vacancy relief from the Cook County assessor. So Baker Tilly put together a spreadsheet of all the property taxes, as well as we also looked at sales tax revenues, as well as what the proposed Barnes & Noble might be able to generate. And so if you look at the table before you, the property taxes between 2025 and 2037 would amount to over $842,000. And with the additional property taxes that would be assessed due to the improvements to the building, they would increase by over $632 million for a total of $1.4 million. So we also looked at Barnes & Noble's sales tax revenue generation, and it was approximately $100,000 based upon their estimates of their sales, which I think are actually going to be lower than they actually, their sales productivity could be higher. But we used a conservative number, as did Baker Tilly. And the subject property will also generate an additional $50,000 in property taxes. And we expect the assessed value to increase by $5 million following the redevelopment that both the landlord and Barnes & Noble will put into the property. And so just assuming a 3% appreciation in those values, we expect to grow to $170,000 by year 2030 and $225,000 by 2039. So if the Class L is granted, the property taxes, about $59,000 would initially be reduced by approximately 30% as a result of the Class L, a reduction of approximately $18,000 in the first year initially. The landlord intends to undertake approximately $3.5 million in renovations and improvements, and Barnes & Noble would undertake their build-out, which is another $2 million. So the property taxes right now in 2023, which is the last full year that we've seen, is $192,000 roughly for one of the PIN numbers and $198 for the other PIN. So the Class L classification would reduce property taxes by approximately $18,000 initially and by over $550,000 over 12 years. So the property taxes are reduced by about $45,000, and if you look at the net benefit to the village, the annual net benefit to the village is about $100,000 in sales taxes and $50,000 in property taxes, and then even if the Class L is subtracted out, that's $50,000. And so we would be looking at $100,000 annually, and it will grow over the 30-year lease term. The Class L will eliminate 25,000 square feet of vacant space and eliminate a blighted property at the Gateway and Oak Park at Harlem and Lake. The cumulative property tax revenues without a Class L is about $840,000 in property taxes, but the cumulative property tax revenues collected over the 12-year Class L designation, including the expected increases that will happen with reassessments triennially, are approximately $50,000 annually, or over $1.4 million over the 12-year life of the Class L. Barnes & Noble is expected to employ approximately 60 new part-time and full-time employees, and there are also multiplier impacts of all these new retail sales, the part-time and full-time employment, wages and salaries, as well as full-time and part-time construction jobs that will be created as a result of this redevelopment. These new revenues are all recycled into the economy, the local economy that is, and the other taxing bodies will benefit through the enhanced property taxes through a $5.5 million investment and the elimination of this 25,000 square foot vacancy. The Class L, the net impact, it'll return a blighted property to productive use. The net impact in property tax revenue over 12 years is about $640,000, and the anticipated property tax revenue after the property returns to full assessment is $1.4 million. So the sales tax revenue is $1.2 million over 12 years, or $100,000 per year, and the total economic impact, without accounting for any indirect economic benefits, are as follows: $1.2 million in sales tax revenues, $1.4 million in property tax revenues, for a total of $2.6 million. And so if you look at like the multiplier impact of that, it could be like 2.2 times income. So it's a very significant economic impact plus the multipliers. And so the designation, in my opinion, is necessary to invest in one of Oak Park's landmark buildings. And I'll be happy to answer any questions along with our team, should you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, any questions from the board? No? Comments? Okay, we can go straight to comments. And I'll acknowledge Nick in the audience. Thank you very much for your significant, thank you both for your significant investment in our village and for joining us this evening. Okay, so we'll start with Jim and then go to Corey.
Oops. I'm just very grateful for the investment in the village, and clearly it has a overall net positive impact, and I'm looking forward to that. It's all the buzz in our village currently in terms of the vitality that represents. Above everything else, above all the numbers, to see that building occupied is very meaningful to every Oak Parker, and I think it's important that we continue to invest in our downtown, and I think this is a good statement on everyone's behalf and commitment, and we stand behind that. So thank you, and thank you for all your work.
I'm just going to, excuse me, echo what Trustee Taglia said. Really appreciate the investment. Nick, last time I saw you, we were talking about DOMS. It's good to see you again here talking about Barnes & Noble. So really appreciate the investment and all the work. And, you know, I will take this time to say that I can finally concur with a motion by the Historic Preservation Commission. So that's first in my service. I appreciate that. And I'll leave it there.
I also want to extend my gratitude, and I really appreciate the approach being taken here with the Class L classification, because I think that this is really a win-win all the way around, providing some relief to go with the rehabilitation that's going into the property, while also allowing the infusion of that sales tax revenue that is going to be so important. And I do think that bringing this space back online in this way is going to have a huge impact on all of the neighboring businesses. And I also think that it's been difficult for the village having this space empty, because this is a gateway to our village. This is how so many people experience coming into our downtown area, and having it revitalized in this way is going to have a major impact, not just an economic impact, but a visual impact as people are entering our village and seeing the vital downtown area that we do have and have had, but it'll just be that much more visible now, and I really appreciate that as well.
Very good. I do want to ask the other trustees if they have words to share, but I do know we have a member of the Historic Preservation Commission. Do you want to share a little bit about the significance of this building?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time. My name is Paul Rivera, member of the HPC Commission. I'm happy to concur with Trustee Wesley here. Since you disagree with us so often, it really doesn't matter, right? We have the future of our village at stake. And the representation from the private firm, or all you who contributed to this plan, it was successful. It met all the requirements for getting this status. And as a building that's sat vacant ever since I've lived in Oak Park, I appreciate that somebody like Barnes & Noble is going in there. So we are all making history here today in passing this Class L.
Thank you, and thank you for your work on the commission. Any other comments? Jenna? And then, I'm sorry, Jimmy.
Oh, sorry. Thank you to the Historic Preservation Commission. There was a lot of information and a lot of work I saw went into preparing and evaluating. So I'm grateful for that effort. I guess I just want to sort of express my support by also thinking with the incentive to this project to also think, the economic impact assessment was very convincing. The presentation tonight was very informative on top of the materials we received. I just also like to think of incentivizing, affirmatively supporting small businesses as well, and maybe thinking intentionally about those other businesses that might be impacted, namely our new independently owned bookstores. So there's never enough books. My favorite place to shop is bookstores, so definitely supportive, but I do want to make sure we're thinking about how we can support and incentivize investments in those locally owned shops as well. So that's all.
Wonderful, thank you. Trustee Enya.
Echoing a lot of what my fellow trustees said. Really, growing up here, getting an opportunity to have been a patron in the building back in the day. I won't say how long. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the cooler parts when I realized that there was a downtown Oak Park. That was one of the parts that I thought was so unique and cool to the downtown aspect, was that building. And if you get a chance to look over some of the notes and you see the interior and you just see how it's constructed, there's just like something about it. It's just really special. I was just looking over this and feeling like a kid again, looking in the building and seeing just the beauty of it. So that's that piece of Oak Park that you always remember of, there's some bits of magic out there, and I really appreciate that you all are investing to still preserve the building. So that's a yay. putting some taxable revenue back into here in Oak Park. That's a yay. Books is a yay. It's just, like we said, also small businesses. We do really care about those businesses that have invested here in Oak Park. The small bookstores that have come here more recently too. So just don't forget about them. This is just another opportunity to take your kids and your family to. So appreciate it and thankful.
Okay, excellent. Nick, you're welcome to share a few words, but you don't have to as well. I know that you've worked very hard to find the right tenant for this building.
That was a long 13-year journey that we went through together. Many of the people in this room saw UFC, saw Downs, and now really the best finally is here with us. And we hope they'll be here a long time. And I want to thank Nick Canellis next to me, our general contractor, 20-year term construction executive, who restored, fantastic buildings around the city of Chicago, University of Chicago, the modern wing at the downtown Modern Art Museum. We have the best design consultation here to do it absolutely at the highest level. And that's how we convinced Barnes & Noble to make us their top priority across 60 stores across the country that they're opening. They wanted to be here this spring, and we're making that happen. And, Kevin and everyone in this room is assisting in that effort now, so I'm really grateful.
Thank you. I don't think they got all of that on the record, but we certainly enjoyed hearing, your passion for the building here in the room. So, again, thank you, and look forward to working with you further. All in favor? Or no, sorry. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Taglia,
Yes.
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
Trustee Eater,
Yes.
Trustee Enya,
Yes.
Trustee Levin Jacobson,
Yes.
Trustee Wesley,
Yes.
President Skaman.
Yes. Congratulations. Now, we've got one more to go. Entertain a motion to concur with the Historic Preservation Commission, adopt a resolution supporting and consenting to approval of Cook County Class L classification for the rehabilitation and the building located at 1144 Lake Street, Oak Park, Illinois. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Levin Jacobson and seconded by Trustee Wesley. Any further comments, or should we go straight to the roll?
2 in one night. I'm on a roll.
Okay, you've been waiting to say that, right?
I have.
Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Levin Jacobson,
Yes.
Trustee Wesley,
Yes.
Trustee Eater,
Yes.
Trustee Enya,
Yes.
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
Trustee Taglia,
Yes.
President Skaman.
Yes. Okay, so we have item T, a resolution. Oh, congratulations. Thank you to Mike, Bruce, and John and Craig for all of your work and your team as well. Item T, entertain a resolution approving the expansion of the Business Assistance Grant Program and grant guidelines. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Trustee Eater and seconded by Trustee Straw. Village Manager Jackson.
Yes, Craig Failer, Development Services Director, and Nomi Diaz, Administrative Officer of Development Services, will present on this item. This item appeared before the board before. We received input from the board, and we're coming back for a recommendation for approval. Craig.
Thank you, Manager Jackson. Craig Failer, Development Services Director. This agenda item is the outcome of staff's presentation to the village board on September 30th, which includes input from the village board. The proposed grants will expand opportunities to all of our business districts related to interior modifications, sustainability, and code upgrades. This will be in addition to our current facade program. So I'm going to ask Nomi Diaz to give you an overview of the grant programs.
Good evening. A lot shorter. On September 30th, we presented a series of different grants to expand the existing business grant programs This expansion consisted of creating guidelines for the two new proposed programs of the Climate Ready Business Grant and the Fire Safety Grant Program. Those proposed guidelines are attached to the agenda item. The interior facade expansion to the other business districts are currently existing. It would just be allowing the use of those existing guidelines to the remaining 11 districts. The grant programs are structured similar to the existing facade grants. They are 50-50 grants with the set minimums and maximums. All awards are reimbursement based, meaning that a business must submit full receipts prior to being issued funds. The grants are limited to one grant recipient per address per program in a fiscal year, meaning that we are allowing a maximum of stacking 2 grants per year. So a business or property can apply for a facade grant, whether it's interior or exterior, and then they can also apply for a fire safety grant or a climate ready grant. The benchmarking requirement is explicitly stated in the guidelines for the climate ready grant. However, we will be checking the address as part of the revised grant application process to confirm that all properties are benchmarking, and we will be working with the Office of Sustainability for address verification. Other than that, we are here for any questions.
Excellent, thank you. Trustee Eater.
All right, on this one I have more to say. Thank you for bringing this back. Thanks for taking in our input from the meeting from a couple, I guess it was September, just a little bit ago. Yeah, so I have a few questions. First of all, where does the funding for these grants come from? Which buckets, or if it's one or more?
So there is a one bucket of funding for retail reimbursement grants in the Business Services Division under Development Services. So that's Division Code 46262.
Okay, and the revenue sources for that, does it just come from taxes and general fund, or are there other revenue sources for that?
All comes from general fund dollars.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm always looking out for the sustainability fund, and I assumed it wasn't coming from there, but yeah, since there's overlap. Second question I had was, do you have a sense about what outreach is going to look like in terms of marketing these programs? Obviously, that's always a constraint over how much they're successful, is how many people know about it and get assistance filling it out. So can you share more about how that's going to be rolled out?
Yeah, absolutely. So if approved, we would prepare a marketing plan with the Office of Communications and the Office of Economic Vitality to let existing businesses know as part of the retention visits that these grants are available and were approved by the village board. We would also do blasts in the FYIs, Pickle Park newsletters, the manager's reports, media, of course, Facebook, Instagram. They're very mighty in terms of getting the word out to the community, as well as a part of renewals. So license renewals are coming up in March. That's when February, the first set of notices come out. So we'll incorporate that as part of the renewal packet that will be going out to all existing businesses.
Okay, that's great. I think I have one request, not to change any of this, but I would love to, and maybe you're already planning on doing this, have some kind of regular reporting on how it's going. Is it quarterly, or was that already intended? But I think it sounds like some of this is new, and I just would love to know how it's rolling out and what businesses are taking advantage of it, and what kinds of things they're applying for, and how are they using the money. Are you already planning to do that, or could you share maybe more about what you are planning to do? And
yes, absolutely.
My thoughts, yeah.
We would love to report the success of the programs. So my plan was to report with monthly updates to village managers, to share with the village board, of course, of the utilization of all 4 programs.
Okay, great. And what kinds of things? Will you be tracking all the things I mentioned, or
yes,
yeah,
correct.
Okay, great, excellent. Yeah, that's great. I'm obviously very supportive of this. I'm very happy to see that Climate Ready is also part of it and incorporated into this as well. So I'm very supportive of it. I'm thankful that we bundled this together tonight, just happened to be on the same night as this other sweet deal that we just made for a large business. Barnes & Noble's a multinational company, lots and lots of money. and we gave them a great deal, right? And I think it's a win-win for the village, right, obviously, and for them as well. But I do think about, those small independent bookstores that will lose some revenue from Barnes & Noble coming in. I know they'll bring in their own revenue, but folks might go there instead of some of the independent ones. So a program like this seems really important, and that's why I care about the marketing of it, because I want to make sure that we're supporting the small businesses with the programs and the funding that we have. So I'm very grateful that this program is rolling out, and I hope very much that it is successful. All right, that's it for me.
Corey.
Just a quick point of clarification, Trustee Eder. We technically give the incentive to the building and not to Barnes & Noble. So if, for whatever reason, and hopefully this won't happen, if Barnes & Noble left after 5 years, what happens is the space itself is improved, so it allows us easier way to recruit a new business into that space. So we don't actually give Barnes & Noble any money, thankfully. And yeah, so that's typically how those incentives work. I fully support this too. Naomi, thank you for your presentation.
Jim.
Just a quick question. So could you explain the limits again? I just want to make sure I'm clear on that, because I couldn't really pick it up necessarily from here. So what was the limits between the two programs, the two sets of programs?
So they are allowed to apply for a facade improvement grant, whether it's exterior or interior.
Right.
Those are both capped at $5,000 maximum award. And then they are also allowed to apply for either a climate ready business grant or a fire safety grant. So it's the facade and then either climate ready or fire safety.
Well, I appreciate that, because before, the way it was presented, one person could take like a quarter of the year's grant money. One store could do that. And I think spreading it out is more fair for other people that want to participate. Just to note, though, that one individual store could obtain the maximum amount would be what, $10,000? Is that right? It's $5,000 for the one, and then it would be either $3,500 or $5,000, depending upon if it's the fire safety or the
That's
other one.
correct.
Okay, so that's still 1/8 of the annual amount that right now we have into this budget item, I guess, to reserve. Is there any sort of a balance going into this? Is there any unexpended funds from prior years, or no?
No, current year we are expecting to expend fully amount
Okay.
that was allocated to the account.
Very good. Well, I guess it's better certainly than letting someone have a quarter, but it's a good incentive. And as somebody starting a business, I think you'll find many that will take advantage of that, and rightfully so. So it'll be helpful to small businesses. Thank you.
Okay. I know we talked about this separately with incentives for the businesses along Oak Park Avenue with the streetscape, but I hope we have some, and when we spoke of those plans, there was going to be some specific outreach to those businesses. But the timing of redoing a streetscape and redoing facades, we know that there are some along that 100, 200 block South Oak Park Avenue that would benefit from this program. We also have some unique challenges in being older buildings there as well. Okay. Well, appreciate the work that was put into this and the responsiveness to the board discussion in how you brought it back to us and presented in a very digestible way. So thank you. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Eder?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Lemon-Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
President Skaman?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Congratulations. So we are moving to item U, which is I would entertain a motion to concur with the Housing Programs Advisory Committee's recommendations and adopt a resolution awarding a funding grant agreement for an affordable housing project totaling $450,000 from the Housing Trust Fund and authorizing execution of the agreement with the Oak Park Residents Corporation. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Very good. Village Manager Jackson.
Sure, Jonathan Birch, Assistant Village Manager and Neighborhood Services Director. I think this is an item that came before the board at one time before in the recent history, and so it's coming back. Jonathan.
Yes, correct. Maybe I'll start with a little bit of that background context that Manager Jackson indicated. Back in March of 2023, the Village Board approved a grant agreement with the Oak Park Residents Corporation for $450,000 in order to support what was called at that time or envisioned as a condo deconversion project. The idea being the money would be provided to the Residents Corporation. They would then be able to identify a condominium project here in town where perhaps due to financial distress for the current owners, there'd be an opportunity to convert that project from a condominium into apartments. That initial agreement was extended in the summer of 2024. It expired in March of 2025 because through that time, the Oak Park Residents Corporation had not yet been able to identify a property that was interested in deconverting or changing from a condominium project into an apartment complex. Since that time, back in October of this year, in October of 2025, the Oak Park Residents Corporation reached out to the village because they did find an association that was interested in that project due to a sizable capital project that they had on their plate that they would be unable to address. In this case, it was a larger balcony replacement project where the balcony was actually physically becoming detached from the building, and that's a pricey endeavor, especially for a small 9-unit condominium building. And so they were game to re-engage and talk about this again. From that, the village staff then received an application from the Oak Park Residents Corporation for the project that you see before you tonight. It was reviewed by the Housing Programs Advisory Committee at their October 15th and October 29th meetings. We have Keith Spencer, Chair from the Housing Programs Advisory Committee, here with us tonight in case there's any questions about the project itself or the deliberations that HPAC underwent as part of that process. So if you read through the materials at all, you'll see, again, 9-unit condominium project. All of those units are existing 1-bedroom condominiums. It has some additional parking that's included as part of the site as well. The proposal, as I indicated, is to provide that $450,000, which the Oak Park Residents Corporation will then leverage with about $350,000 of their own money, as well as loans they'll be taking out in order to be able to acquire all of the units, be able to make the capital investment specifically to address that balcony issue that I mentioned before, and then deconvert it or change it from a condominium into apartments. Folks who are currently living in the units right now, the folks who are currently owners would then be given an option to lease for 3, 6, or 12 months. Those options were laid out in the application materials that were submitted by the Residents Corporation. And then, obviously, if some of them income qualified for the units, they could, of course, stay on longer than that. But it does give folks who are in the building right now a runway as they decide how to move forward, given they no longer be owning their individual unit. Those 9 units, out of those 9 units, 3 would be affordable to households making less than 80% of the area median income. An additional 4 would be affordable to households making less than 60% of the area median income. And finally, 2 would be affordable to households making less than 50% of the area median income. The village would be securing its investment with a mortgage note on the property. As part of the conversations with HPAC, the Residents Corporation agreed to a 15-year period of affordability with $30,000 of the village's $450,000 investment forgiven every year during that period. So at the end of that period, the amount would be fully forgiven. If for some reason the Residents Corporation were to sell the building between now and then, the village would recoup any of the outstanding balance for the initial amount that we had provided, with the bit forgiven over time. I think that's probably it for me. Questions from you all?
And I do believe we also have a member of the Housing Programs Advisory Commission with us. If there are additional questions from the board. Thank you.
What is the expectation regarding the percentage of residents who are likely to remain in their units?
The answer is we don't really know. We know that they've taken affirmative action to vote that they are willing to sell. They are able to get over the threshold in order to be able to do that deconversion. The information about the sort of tier timeline has been presented to them as part of that, so they are aware of that. But everybody's got to sort of make their own choice when you're selling your home where you've lived for a long time. That's a hard thing to know what you want to do.
Okay. Yeah, I certainly am supportive of the project. I think it makes a good deal of sense. I guess the one thing I'm just not sure on is sort of how many affordable units it's sort of truly adding to the ecosystem when it's likely that the exact same people who already were living there, who could afford to live there, are continuing to live there. So I guess that's one thing I'm struggling with a little bit is what kind of impact are we expecting this to have on the larger picture of housing affordability?
Sure. So this is very much a preservation deal far more than it is we're not talking about adding new supplies. Not like there's suddenly going to be 9 more apartments where there weren't 9 apartments before. These are existing units that are already part of our housing stock overall. And as we've talked about, I think at the board table before, many of our lower cost condominiums are often some of our more affordable ownership options in town. That said, over time, this does allow us to make sure those are locked in a location that is within walking distance of downtown Oak Park, within walking distance of the Hemingway District, so in a very location-rich spot in the village, good access to transit, and it would be owned by a long-term community partner that maintains those units for a long time. So even beyond that 15-year affordability period, the village has a history of supporting acquisitions by the Residence Corporation, and those as part of their mission continuing to stay affordable for much longer periods of time than that.
That's fair, and I appreciate that that response, because I think that's a really important issue if we're talking about what the alternative here, where there was an expense that the condominium association wasn't going to be able to afford. What other alternatives might they have been looking at? And some of those alternatives might have resulted in a loss of affordable housing. So
Agreed.
Maintaining that housing stock is important. So I appreciate it, and I will be supportive.
Thank you. Jim?
So I'm supportive of this. I do say, though, I've been thinking about it, the number of units being generated here in total, compared to other developments, we have competition for our funds from this affordable housing money, and I just want to make sure it's always used the most efficiently. And when I think of, and they're different, I understand different goals, perhaps even. The 801 project, I think there were 35 units there, and we put in $500,000, and that made that happen. Without it, it wouldn't have happened. And here, this is 450,000, and by definition, I think it's 6 units by affordability standards. So it's like it's maybe not. I'm kind of nonplussed by that. The differences between those two. I mean, should we? Obviously, this is something which we're pursuing now, but I don't know.
Sure. I think in this case, a good way to think of it, and one of the ways that staff thinks of it as well, is when we provide $700,000 to a community builders project, right? They're going to provide 28 or 30 units down on Roosevelt Road if that project were to move forward. Like all those different elements as part of that, that's part of a much larger capital stack, right? The village's $700,000 is part of a $12 or $14 million project. So yes, our little but for is definitely part of that, an important part of being able to move that forward. In this case, our provision of amount is not so far off, but the total project cost is also far, far less. They're not bringing as many other sources to the table. So there is some order of magnitude difference that has an impact there as well.
I appreciate that. I like to see the leverage if we can ever approach these projects. Those are more impactful, and I think in the future, I mean, I think they're really where I'd like to see that money go to maximize the benefit. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Chair Spencer, do you want to share anything? And I also see that David Pope has joined us.
Thanks for the time, and we appreciate all the consideration from the board. Many of the things that you guys have brought up, we were discussing. We talked about the leverage and about the size and scope. And the way we have looked at this is, you know, dealing with affordability in the village is going to require a lot of different tools in the tool belt. And one of those thoughts was maintaining that housing that is affordable within the village and looking at, like, you know, this housing stock. So yes, like the 801, those the other ones that we've been fortunate enough and to fund have been fantastic, and we get that scale. And the other part is also looking at, you know, it's the new developments, but it's also those ones that are currently here, and making sure that, you know, we provide that same opportunity for people to kind of be able to, for some, hopefully stay within the property, others producing that, and also like the location of those properties is another conversation of making sure that it's like, you know, there are some that are going to be on Roosevelt, they're going to be in other locations, having those that are walking distance to Hemingway, having access to there, and making sure that those affordable units where there, you know, is a lot more density, and we may not be able to have the ability to build something like at a large scale or support somebody building something at a large scale in that same footprint, but providing that opportunity. So so we had Jonathan has suffered through many of our conversations. So many of the things we've brought that up, and it was careful consideration, including having a special meeting just to kind of bring it back up and kind of finish the conversation. Yeah, we thought this was just another opportunity, and yes, the scale between those and a few other things that are kind of discussed within HPAC are always considerations of highest and best use of the funds is a constant conversation with every single one. And this was, you know, unanimously voted on by the commission, which at times requires a little bit of effort. But so this was one that we all supported wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. This is easy for me to support, but I will say I'm always thinking about how we can add more affordable units to our housing stock, how we can add more funds to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And then as Chair Spencer was explaining, the maintaining of existing affordable stock is something I think we also need to weave in as we look at zoning, as we look at maybe strengthening our IHO. Exactly this effort of maintaining stock and keeping people in their homes. I think that's something to think. There are people living here, you know, and they're gonna, if they want, get to stay in our community. So that's a consideration for me as well. My questions are a little more general. Going through the attachments, maybe I missed it, but I'm curious about the 15-year timeline. What is that based on? Is that a standard sort of expectation of maintain, like, you see where I'm getting at?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about that. 15 years is pretty typical. You often see it in 15 or 30-year increments because that's often associated with standards, especially if a deal is also being funded by low-income housing tax credits, because there is sort of a 15-year affordability period, and then it might extend out to 30 years beyond that. So this is relatively standard in that sort of way.
That's helpful, thank you. And then the other piece I'm curious to learn about is the oversight into the management of the new affordable units. On the staffing impact section, it said staff will need to monitor and report on the terms of the agreement related to the 15-year affordability period. What does that monitoring and reporting look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually something the Neighborhood Services Department is standing up right now. So as we fund projects, especially physical buildings with units with long-term affordability periods like this, staff needs to be regularly reaching out annually to getting information from those developers to confirm that those units are continuing to meet our affordability requirements, and the conditions and the assurances that are included in the application are included in the things that we're recording against the property. Mm-hmm. So that looks like reaching out with some sort of form or making use of an existing form, right? the village doesn't have to create it over. We could take one that the county provides or a developer already provides to the state for the same sort of compliance purposes in order to be able to document that over time.
Is that already happening for existing
That is
units,
something
or-
that we're standing up right now, so we're
Okay.
working on being able to do that.
Very cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Corey?
Hugely supportive of this. I look at this a little bit differently than maintaining affordable housing. I look at it as creating affordable housing because the way that I read this agenda item is that the housing that currently exists is no longer affordable, right? Because there's a large capital investment that's needed, and the owners of the building don't want to or can't afford to do that, right? Which makes those units now no longer affordable, right? And so the way that I look at this is what we're doing is enabling those units to go back to a state where they will be affordable and at least affordable for the next 15 years. So I think that's great because otherwise, if this building hits the market, maybe it gets acquired by a market rate developer and all of those units become market rate. So I think this is something that I love the innovative kind of approach to this, mainly too because we did fund a couple other developments this year, which hugely supportive of. They do have more units, but their per unit amount is way higher than what we're looking at right here, right? So when I looked at it, the community builders, hold on a second, I got the numbers. Yeah, the community builders is $678,000 per unit, and then the interfaith housing is $444,000 per unit. If we look at only our investment on these are $75,000 per unit to create affordable units. If we look at the entirety of the budget, the 1.7, which is the what we're putting in plus what the Res Corps is putting in, we're still only up to $290,000 a unit. So this is a great use of our funds. In my opinion, is a great way to scale the use of our funds, right? Because we're getting more per dollar doing it this way. I do agree that it's nice to be able to throw $500,000 and get like a 30-unit building stood up. But a 30-unit building stood up at like $800,000 a unit, right? That's difficult, right? And that highlights the reason I'm talking about this. I just want to underscore one of the challenges of direct building affordable housing, right? If I look at what Albion cost, it was $253,000 per unit, right? Like there's a huge gulf there. And this plays out across pretty much all direct build affordable housing projects when you're building them from the ground up. So any place where we can find places like this where we can leverage and scale our money on a per unit basis, that's going to be a lot lower than what we can do otherwise. I'm hugely supportive of. So,
thank you.
Chiming in, also supportive. This is something that actually I have a little bit of experience in working with national advocates for NOAA, which is what they call it, Naturally Occurring Affordable Housing. Always love those acronyms. So yeah, the DePaul Institute of Housing Studies and the Chicago Investment Corporation have done a project that I worked on to identify different kinds of naturally occurring affordable housing across the nation. And in Oak Park, we have a cluster of homes, which I'm sure you know about, which has moderate income. They are existing and decreasing share. There's a decreasing share of affordable units. It's part of an urban core of a smaller growing metro area. It's lower income. So these are all things that I think describe the area that we're in. And so, when I think people think about capital A affordable, they oftentimes are thinking of the new construction. But there is so much lowercase little a affordable that is oftentimes not always thought of as affordable housing, but it's there, and so I'm and this is an example of preserving exactly that. So very supportive of this, and any other opportunities we can leverage these funds to do more of this, the better, to keep people where they are and being able to afford and live in this community and keep it great and vibrant. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so I will put David on the spot for just a moment then. Hi, David. I wonder, since you've heard really the conversation, the materials were very, very thorough, answered a lot of questions, but you're hearing from the board that greater discussion around housing and the strategic plan that we passed last year from the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, the role that the Housing Authority and the Residents Corporation play into that in some of what you've heard.
Sure. So why don't I start first by complimenting you on running a more efficient meeting than I maybe did and getting to this item on the agenda sooner than I thought we were going to. But thank you all for the work and the support that you provide broadly for the village. Also, thank you to the members of HVAC. They put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it was a really helpful and meaningful conversation with them as well. I think on this larger issue of housing affordability and how it sort of fits in the context of the village, the Residents Corporation focuses on really three different things: quality, affordability, and diversity. Quality, making sure that there's high-quality multifamily housing available throughout the community. Affordability, making sure that there's economically integrated affordability. And that's one of the things that's a really important component of this specific proposal, because one of the things that we have, we're seeing some decreases, let me say, in where we have affordable housing within the community. And so one of the things that's attractive about this to us in terms of advancing that mission is the opportunity to be able to bring more affordable units in closer to the downtown core area, where we have an opportunity to be able to see, with respect to the economic drivers in the core of our downtown, transportation access, other things that will work well for folks who are at the lower end of the income spectrum. And given the development that's occurred in downtown over the course of the last 25 years, the level of market-based demand for housing in those areas has increased, therefore pricing has increased, and it's made it more difficult to be able to establish and create housing in those areas of our community. Particularly when you start looking at, as Trustee Wesley was mentioning, the cost of new construction is really, very, very difficult to be able to sort of make work, especially in areas where there is very high market demand, because the just base land pricing ends up being extremely expensive and adding to the cost per unit in a pretty significant way. So our strategic approach as a community to being able to create and advance more affordable units in these areas that are maybe less accessible within our community is likely to be more acquisition-based than it is new construction-based to a large extent. And I think we just need to sort of understand that and recognize that is a lower cost per unit way of being able to achieve and advance this sort of effort that is really meaningful in the community. And then that third pillar, quality, affordability, diversity, when we think about diversity and the diversity of the community, Oak Park is statistically the most successfully diverse city in the United States based on 4 different criteria. 1, are you in a diverse metropolitan area? 2, does your municipality look like generally, the demographics of the metropolitan area? 3, does it look like that on a block-by-block basis using a tool that social scientists use called a dissimilarity index analysis? And 4, does it look like that consistently over time? And so it's not just simply sort of a point in time where you're passing through from group X to group Y to group Z. It's actually group X and group Y and group Z all living together throughout the community and in various areas throughout the community. In Oak Park, one of the things that we run the risk of is both from an economic and from a racial and cultural standpoint of seeing the increasing market demand in certain areas, pricing certain groups and people out of those areas. And so the question is, can we take steps actively to be able to help encourage and foster the creation of new affordable units in and around our downtown area? And what I'm, in answer to your question, President Skaman, what I'm trying to say is the approaches and the strategies that we take in different parts of the community may be different. And one of the things that we may need to really think actively about here is the opportunity to be able to look at an acquisition strategy in and around our downtown areas. So.
Thank you. That's it might be an appropriate time to share a reminder that we are continuing the work of that housing study and that the village manager does have a task force that he's compiled and zoning discussions and more to come. So thank you.
Great.
Okay.
And again, just thank you to all of you for all of your work. It's a thankless job a lot of times, I know, and so we're appreciative, so thank you.
Excellent. All right. If there's no further comments, then if we could take the roll, I think that was Trustee Leving-Jacobson that motioned and Trustee Wesley who seconded? Okay, very good. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Leving-Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
Trustee Eater?
Yes.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
President Skaman?
Thank you. Yes. Okay, congratulations again. Thank you for your work and great job with the presentation to staff. Next, we have our Truth in Taxation public hearing for the proposed tax year 2025 property tax levy and determination of estimated levy. I have specific instructions here. Well, am I calling for that motion first? No. Okay, welcome to the public hearing on the 2025 property tax levy. This matter was continued from November 11, 2025, when the hearing was opened and continued to this evening. Village Attorney Greg Smith will now describe the notice that was published regarding the hearing.
Thank you. Notice of the public hearing was published as required by state statute in the Wednesday Journal newspaper. The hearing was opened by the village board on November 11th and was continued to this evening without discussion. The notice and agenda for this meeting both stated the means by which persons may provide public comment for this hearing.
Thank you. I will now turn the hearing over to Village Manager Kevin Jackson for a presentation on a 2025 proposed property tax levy.
Thank you, President Skaman. I'd like to introduce Donna Gaten, interim CFO, to conduct the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Donna Gaten, interim CFO. This is the tax levy. So it was uploaded again today, later today, so you may not have gotten a chance to see it. Originally, this is the tax levy where we said it would be 4.98%. Early this weekend, it was brought to our attention that one of the levies, 2015B, the abatement for 2015B was not executed last year. And so the property tax, the abatement that we would have received was about $427,000 we did not receive. So in that, I talked to Spear, I talked to bond counsel, and we made some adjustments. So as you see right now, the corporate levy is at 3.21% increase. And what was driving was the pension levy and the fire pension levy, both at 8.34% and 9.6%. That time, the debt service levy after the abatement was less than 1%. And then we have the library property tax levy request. So the village's levy at that time was 4.96. The library was 5.4, which brought the levy to 4.98. After we did our calculations, and I worked with Spear and the bond counsel, we brought the levy down to 2.71. And how we did that is that the corporate, police, and fire pension remains the same. The debt service levy that was not taken last year was taken this year. So we took all of the levy, all of the abatements that we could take in the, I think it's 7 bonds, and then we took the abatement that we did not take the prior year. So the debt service levy, because of the extra abatement, which is a negative 14.35%, brought the village's levy down to 2.71. Questions so far? So by doing this now, and then we put in some parameters so it won't be missed again, and all of the levies that we do, we have a large spreadsheet that's done by Spear.
So then once I do the levy, I send it to Spear. I want to thank Greg Kohler for bringing it to our attention. And so Greg and I did spend some time this weekend, well, on Monday, going back and forth to make sure all of our numbers tied out. And then the last one is that you have this sheet, you have all of them, but I had to change the debt service. It just tells you what was in 2023, 2024, 2025, and the variances. And the total variances between all three tax years is 2.21 million.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have questions on the presentation? And yes.
There's a second slide though, right? There's an updated with the lower number, 1.94, right?
Yeah, 1.94.
Okay,
There it is.
so that's
Yeah.
the number,
Yes,
right?
1.94.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
sorry. The updated. So I wanted to show what it originally was that we advertised in the paper, and then once we updated it.
Shout out to Greg Kolar. Thank you, Greg.
Bond man.
Member of the Finance Committee.
That's right. And so we've had a number of Finance Committee meetings this season, probably the most that we've had in modern history. And we've done something different this year in our three committees of the Village Board: Finance, Personnel, and Reimagining Government, where I assign after every election season 3 members of the board for each of those 3 committees. Currently, Finance is Trustee Eater, Trustee Taglia, and Trustee Straw. And according to our ordinance, I was permitted to add 3 members of our community, of which 1 was required to be an ex-trustee. And so former trustee John Hedges, who was here with us this evening, joined that Finance Committee. He's been able to add valuable context historically of some of what has, some of the approaches of what has been done in the past, and just kind of draw our attention then as trustees to how to guiding us through how to make our decisions. And then Greg Kolar, who we've mentioned, who has really taken a deep dive into our historical levy and information that was provided by the county to identify the abatement that needed to be corrected at this time. And he also serves on, I believe, every Finance Committee in the community that exists. So his experience is very valuable in that way, and as we continue to see how it is that we can work more collaboratively with our other elected bodies. And then Bridget Allen Hedgeman, who also serves on our Community Relations Commission as of very recently. So we are looking forward to continuing that committee throughout 2026 as we understand that, we've got on Thursday a special meeting on facilities. And so the need, this is the first time in 50-something years, or 50 years, that the Village of Oak Park has had to undertake discussions inclusive of such a major facilities discussion. So having that additional transparency, but voices at a Finance Committee to lead us through that process, as well as navigating the over the climate that we're living in today, whether political or financial, however you wish to look at it, and what that might mean to our board goals and revenue sources, and our need to continue to diversify our revenue sources and to support our board goals. So go back to my notes and making sure that I am following the directions here. So thank you, Donna, for your presentation. I note that the staff presentation includes an estimated levy amount, which serves as the village board's determination of the estimated levy. Do the trustees have any comments with regard to the proposed tax levy? Okay. Clerk Waters, has anyone signed up to provide public comment concerning the proposed property tax in advance?
No.
Are there any written comments to be added to the record? Is there anyone present to provide public comment on the proposed levy? Is there anyone present to provide public comment on the proposed levy? If so, you're welcome to join us at the podium now. Chris?
You guys signed up for the wrong one. Next item.
Oh, no worries.
Okay. I'll be brief. So thank you all for your service here tonight.
Thank you for joining us.
And I know it's a little difficult in these times to focus on budget issues, but I'm kind of want to look ahead to a time when things aren't as crazy and when finances become really the most important issue in the village again. I know that we're proposing approximately 5% levy increase for this year.
That's been modified.
Yeah. Okay. What my concern is not so much for this year as a one-off, but more for if this becomes the new normal, that over time, at a 5%, what is the new?
The new levy, Donna, would you share?
Oh, I guess I can probably quit this then. But I was going to say 5% would over 12 years would double the burden, but 2 is more like 30 or 26 years. So I'm glad to hear that, and I guess there's really no more reason for me to speak. So thank you very much.
Chris, your comments are still, we understanding the importance of addressing affordability in our community, and what you're speaking to is exactly why I have decided to create this this more inclusive finance committee to navigate those discussions for the future. So thank you.
So I just want to say thank you, Chris, for showing up and actually giving comment on our budget. I talked to so many people in our community about affordability and about the budget and about spending and about any and everything financial, and none of that ever makes it to this forum. They never show up. They never send an email. They never do a phone call, right? And so it's just refreshing to see someone actually show up and ask us about the levy to keep us accountable. So I appreciate that. It doesn't matter either way. Just thank you for showing up.
Actually, again, it's of no fault of anyone in the community, and it's great that they're alerted to that, because Donna, maybe you want to re-explain why it is that notice went out. We have to put an estimate out before we're really done with our work, right?
Yes, so what the state requires is that when you have a levy at 5% or more, that you advertise. The Village of Oak Park has always done a levy tax hearing, even when it was below 5%. And so the original levy was 4.96, and then after we did the calculations, it came down to 2.71. But by always doing a hearing that invites the community to come out and share their thoughts about the budget, and it makes it more transparent.
So I'll just ask one last time. Is there anyone present to provide public comment on the proposed levy? Thank you. All persons who wish to be heard have been given an opportunity to do so. I will now ask for a motion, a second, to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Trustee Wesley and seconded by Trustee Straw. Christina, Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Eater?
Yes.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Levin-Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
President Skaman?
Yes. Thank you. The motion is passed and the hearing is adjourned. Thank you. Not the meeting, just the hearing. Now, item W, we will be revisiting. It's going to be continued to December 12th. Or
December 2nd.
2nd. So I'm reading 12 and 12. December 2nd. No, we're gonna be on vacation by then.
The motion.
The, and so that brings us to item X, a review of the 2026 fiscal year budget.
President Scaman, before we go on to the next item, we would need a motion to continue item W to 12-2.
Oh, very good. Okay, entertain a motion to continue item W to December 2nd, 2025. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Strawn, seconded by trustee Wesley. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Straw,
Yes.
trustee Wesley,
Yes.
trustee Eater,
Yes.
trustee Enya,
Yes.
trustee Levin Jacobson,
Yes.
trustee Taglia,
Yes.
President Scaman.
Yes, thank you. And so now item X, review of the 2026 fiscal year budget. So this is our opportunity to actually discuss the work of the Finance Committee. Village Manager Dexter.
Yeah, absolutely, appropriately said, President Scaman, trustee members. This is the initial review by the entire village board of the proposed FY26 budget. But as President Scaman suggested, there has been substantial review by the Finance Committee. And then we had a wrap-up session on 11/6 with the Finance Committee. And so the budget that's before you, that's going to be reviewed tonight, reflects recommendations from the Finance Committee. So we will be highlighting some of the changes that were suggested by the Finance Committee as part of the budget that we initially released, I think, October 21st. All of our department heads are here tonight to answer any questions of the trustees that you may have about the budget. We're going to do a brief overview. Mary Medelsky, Budget Manager, is going to handle that for us tonight. Mary.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the trustees, staff, and public members. Mary Medelsky, Budget Manager. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of the 2026 requested budget. This screen is very similar to the one that you just saw, related to how the levy is actually calculated and the different components of the levy. So I'm going to proceed to the next slide because we've spent some time on this particular one. So the requested budget for 2026, in terms of our sources versus our uses, you can see where our 2026 requested budget is $96 million. Our 2025 recommended budget is what we're operating under right now, is $114 million. We have had a negative variance. We have brought our budget down of $18 million or 16%. How have we come to our sources of revenue? As you can see, how our revenue is calculated based on 2026 from property taxes based on the levy, other taxes that we would actually achieve or receive from different components, licensing permits, charges for service, grant revenues, any of our fines. You'll see that those are actually listed coming to a total of $96 million from that perspective. Our sources of revenue have gone down from 96 to 114. You'll see there's a change from that perspective of $18 million from that area. And this gives you a graphical in terms of where our sources are for funding. Property taxes, as you do see, is the major source of our actual funding for our operations of the village. Where other taxes components are another component of it, it's a larger portion also of that source. In terms of how are we using our funds are primarily used for personnel services, which are salaries. You can see it's the largest percentage of our overall budget. Then going into fringe benefits, which are the healthcare, the dental, the IRMRF, et cetera, expenses. Other costs that we would have, general contractuals, grants, subsidies that we actually make to the village and their businesses to come to the $96 million also in terms of how we're planning on using those funds. Once again, we have a pictorial in terms of how our funds are being used. Once again, as I mentioned, personnel services and fringe make up the biggest component of our overall funds for use. This gives you an idea in terms of when we are talking about our property taxes, our tax rate in terms of what it represents in the different, the split, if you were like taking $1, wanted to cut up your dollar, where it would be going. This gives you an idea of what has happened since 2019 to 2023. As we know, our 24 bills have just arrived, so we don't have all the grammatic information listed here for that. But this gives you a historical idea of how the dollar has actually been spent. May I answer any questions?
Questions?
I have
Comments?
reinforcements.
Yes. As well as Mr. Hedges. Any questions, comments? Because we probably will, well, we will go through, outside of this presentation, you know, highlight the areas of change that the Finance Committee led on, so that we're being very transparent, not just to the community, but also to our colleagues.
Yes.
Jim, do you want to have something first?
Go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, that last point, I think we do want to do that right up front, so we have transparency about the work of the Finance Committee and the changes that were recommended by the Finance Committee, so.
And there were 2 changes that were recommended by the Finance Committee. Well, one change that was recommended, it was the living room, $150,000. And then there was discussion about $250,000 going to sustainability. Both of those amounts would come from the fund balance. Rob Sproul is here to talk about the changes that happened within the CIP, which is included within the budget itself. But those were the main 2 for the actual operating budget at this time.
And then there was the ordinance for the firefighter overhiring.
Right.
That is correct.
And so for once we're through with this, if maybe we can just revisit that presentation for the transparency of our colleagues. Okay? Thank you. So we're going to, so no questions on the living room and the sustainability fund or comments?
I got a question about the presentation.
Please, we'll do that now.
Can we go back a couple slides?
And then we'll go to Rob and then Kira, right? Where would you like to go?
Uses or revenues?
Sorry, 6?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So looking at this, and we're saying that our budget for 26 is $20 million roughly less than our budget for 2025?
We are, go ahead. Yes, it is. And remember, last year in 2025, we had the streetscape in the budget. And
Okay.
that's the bulk of it.
So that's the bulk of it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Jim has a question.
Just a quick question. So the interfund transfer, the lost revenue calculation from way back, coming into this requested budget for 2026, if that weren't there, if we didn't have that money, what would the levy have looked like?
Okay, the interfund transfers isn't lost revenue. There is no lost revenue.
From,
No. All of ARPA money had to be obligated, spent, or obligated by 2024, December 31st.
Right.
So these interfund transfers are transfers going back and forth between departments itself.
okay,
And the interfund transfers will be there, they were there before you had ARPA money. So the ARPA fund balance is 0,
it's zero
Zero.
as of the beginning of the
December 31st, 2024.
4.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay. Now, so now we're going to CIP, correct? No further questions? All right, great, yes. So this is speaking to the changes, the recommended changes of the Finance Committee in the CIP.
Sure, okay.
Thank you.
I don't think you have any.
And Donna, all of the updates are on the website, right? Or for tonight's meeting? Yes. Okay.
Good evening, Public Works Director Rob Sproul, Bill McKenna, Village Engineer, Assistant Public Works Director is here with me also.
So there was a prepared 5-year capital plan presented to the Finance Committee through a number of meetings earlier throughout the fall. And what is presented here is a combination of some additions and subtractions that were made by the Finance Committee through their recommendation, primarily focusing around the addition of the purchase of a ladder, fire department ladder truck for 2026. So there was a significant increase associated with the purchase of that truck. And so the Finance Committee back in October and verified during their 11-4 meeting made a number of suggested deferrals to the 2026 budget to account for that $2.25 million associated with the purchase of that vehicle. And those come from a number of different projects through a number of different funds, including the Fleet Fund, the Building Improvement Fund, and the Main Capital Fund. I don't know if the board wants to hear all of those specifics or just understand that there was that change. And then, I wasn't at the meeting last Thursday, but Bill McKenna is here and maybe can speak to the last changes I know that were asked for during the final meeting on Thursday.
Right, but those, on October 7th, there was a document that was shared that highlights all of, if anyone's interested in all of the line items in that fleet and the sections you've mentioned, they're all there.
Yeah, they're all part of the, actually, they're all part of the AIC for the Finance Committee CIP item on November 4th.
November 4th, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Bill.
So at the last Finance Committee meeting, the Finance Committee did make a recommendation to essentially defer the Bike Boulevard construction project from all being done in 2026 to making that a 2026 and 2027 expenditure. So there was a recommended deferral of approximately $1.7 million to spread that project out over 2 years as part of that, the last meeting and the recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Can you speak to how the elements of the Vision Zero and others remain in the budget and what the boulevard, what the cut looks like for the experience of the resident?
So the 5-year capital plan includes a number of projects in the 2026 budget that are really addressing implementation of the Vision Zero plan and implementation of the bike plan. So with the Vision Zero plan, there is traffic safety improvements, recommendations. Some of those are standalone projects in the design of projects. So Chicago Avenue is a high injury network location. There is a line item in the capital improvement plan to start the design of a safety improvement project on Chicago Avenue. There is also a line item in the traffic calming improvements for implementing traffic calming throughout the village as part of implementing traffic calming by policy. So those are projects that get typically absorbed by the street resurfacing project, where we're doing improvements throughout the village as part of our roadway program projects. There's also line items for starting to implement traffic calming by schools and parks. And then with Vision Zero, there's also a number of recommendations in Vision Zero for improving safety at signalized intersections. So we have a number of projects in the capital improvement plan to start looking at our traffic signals to improve safety there. So we have been doing a traffic signal study this year for looking at timings of traffic signals, as well as opportunities to make traffic signals safer for pedestrians and more kind of convenient for pedestrians. So looking at implementing pedestrian recall, so that's where pedestrians don't have to push the push buttons to get a walk signal, and then implementing a leading pedestrian interval. That's where pedestrians get a walk signal in advance of the opposing traffic getting a green. That allows pedestrians to get out into the crosswalk. They're more prominent and visible to vehicles, especially turning vehicles. So it's a kind of a documented safety improvement. So we're wrapping up that study and have recommendations where we want to implement that. It looks like we could implement the PED recall pretty much universally throughout the village, except for a couple signals that only get triggered when there's like a vehicle there. And similarly, leading PED intervals, looks like we could implement those pretty much universally throughout the village. But we have a line item to update those timing plans, and then leading pedestrian intervals need some additional physical improvements to make them recommendations. So we want to have the pedestrian signals to be audible. So
So people with visual impairments can hear the pedestrian signal and give them an indication that it's safe to proceed out into the crosswalk. So not all our signals have that. So we would be upgrading our traffic signals to have the accessible pedestrian signals so that we could implement LPI. We've got other signal improvements that also tie back to Vision Zero and the bike plan for upgrading our detection at signals, and then also communications between the signals so that we can actually then better control them for that as well. There's other bike improvements within the capital plan, so we have a line item for implementing recommendations from the bike plan update that was approved earlier this year. So that's for improvements on Augusta and Harvard, and then the bike boulevard network that we already talked about.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Oh, Rob, did you want to add more?
I thought important just to note one more change that occurred during the Finance Committee process as it relates to the capital plan. So there were some significant changes associated with the out years where projects were kind of optional projects were removed as part of what you're seeing now by the Finance Committee. But there was a commitment by the Finance Committee to revisit the 5-year capital plan after the adoption of this budget in early 2026 to kind of re-evaluate the out years of the 5-year capital plan with a lens towards the financial circumstances of the village, and kind of put together a new capital plan there. So I just want to note that those projects aren't just gone or they've been removed. It's just that they're part of a later evaluation process that'll be considered.
Appreciate that. Is there anything that needs to be added to that? I certainly could, but I don't want to say anything more than I need to.
No, I think we captured it. So we, just as a reminder, we still have the long-term strategic financial planning underway. I think the plan reflects a commitment to following through with that process, right, and having some serious policy discussion about the long-term finances of the village in the context of the village board's goals and the significant projects that are being contemplated from a capital standpoint, i.e., village police station, village hall renovation, and other some of the other plans that we've recently adopted. The bike plan, Vision Zero, that come with significant capital cost implications. So I think the plan that's being recommended at this point in time respects the board's commitment to the long-term financial planning process, and we look forward to working with the board next spring to finish that process.
So that's really about making sure that we're in a good position for bonding at a good rate, favorable rate.
And I do want to address briefly the Bike Boulevard plan and the deferral there. And I think that the best way to understand that is, we're taking on a lot of new commitments with regard to cyclist and pedestrian safety, and we want to make sure to get some of those new initiatives underway while continuing to appropriately dedicate resources to completing the Bike Boulevard project. The Bike Boulevard project, we've built out about 2/3 of it in the last 2 years, and this approach still commits to completing the build out of the Bike Boulevard project over the course of 4 years with this deferral. And so I think that this is a reasonable way to sort of to balance all these demands, prioritize some of the infrastructure upgrades necessary to move on to the next steps in some of the Vision Zero safety items, while continuing to build out the Bike Boulevard network in a way that is sort of respectful of the network and understanding that it operates best when we continue connecting those elements that we've already put into place.
Okay, so piggybacking on that, a couple questions about the bike deferment. So the initial budget, did it include the full, was it 1.5 plus 1.7 and all to be executed next year? And was that at the 4.98% levy?
Yeah, the levy, I'll have to.
Sure, of course.
The original capital plan that was submitted to the Finance Committee showed a $3.2 million expenditure in 2026 for completing the Bike Boulevard network. Since that time, we've gone out to bid for a portion of that work for installing RFBs at the crossings of the Boulevard network with all the major intersections. So there has been a lot of kind of change between when we initially met with the Finance Committee in early September and where we're at now. So the budget that is in front of you at this point has a expenditure of roughly like $800,000 in 2026, but a larger expenditure in 2025 to do all those RFBs. We anticipate having a contract to the village board at the first meeting in December to buy all those. In aggregate, those two are a $1.5 million-ish project once we get bids back. That's what we want to get built in the near future to realize the Cook County grant that we received. Cook County grant funds a portion of a project up to $250,000. We need that project to be about $1.5 million to not lose grant funds. So, and then the remainder of the Boulevard network would be built out in 2027. So, so it's one of those projects that's, you know, we've been meeting with the Finance Committee now for the last 3 months. So things have changed.
Okay. Okay.
So as we did last year, when we have our next meeting, you will have the original budget, and then we had an errata sheet where we showed by line item what was removed after your discussion tonight and after all of the Finance Committee discussions, what was removed or what was added, and then we'll come back with another number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That helps. Did you?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm good.
Okay, so to be clear, what are we deferring to or let me ask actually a different question. What are we building in 2026 as it relates to the bike project?
So
over the course of 2025.
Yeah, in addition to the flashing beacons, we would be looking to do a lot of the pavement marking and striping on the remainder of the network. When we looked at the network in considering possible deferrals, there was a new portion of the Boulevard network that was added as part of the bike plan update this summer. So there was a new portion added at the far west side of the village, generally running along like Marion Street from like Lemoyne to our downtown. That was really intended to get people to downtown and transit, less about schools and parks and connectivity for kind of some of the younger users. We figured that would be a good portion to defer till 2027. It is a newer portion and it's got some of those less vulnerable users on it. So we'll try to stripe out and sign out the bulk of the remainder network. That's probably what you're going to see pushed out to 2027. And then once we kind of figure out what we can build with the funds that we're showing, we're going to meet with the Transportation Commission, have them review those proposed improvements for 2026. If there's real gaps in that network that we think are creating issues, we would meet again with the village board to ask for additional funds to maybe fill those gaps. But we'll use the Transportation Commission to review what our proposed improvements will be for 2026 and then 2027 so that we could all be on the same page.
Got it. Okay. Appreciate that. That's helpful. And so the updated levy, and this one's probably more for you again, Donna. So the levy that we're looking at now is roughly the same, but it has that deferred, it splits the project in half, right?
Right. The
Okay.
operating levy is 3.21. That didn't change.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only the debt service that changed.
Got it. Okay, so then we're saving 1.7 million for next year. What did we spend it on? I guess is the question, because the levy didn't change right from the initial to now.
Well, I can't say exactly what we spent it on until I see all the different changes.
Okay,
Yeah, and then I'll be able to show you, what is it, December 2nd,
okay,
or before December 2nd.
got it.
Yeah,
Okay, that's helpful. Okay, thank you.
you're,
My perspective on this depends on what we're spending the $1.7 million on next year. If
Yet, were there things added between now and the finance committee? No, so
No.
there,
no.
so there's
there
just a
wasn't anything.
reconciling that needs to happen.
Okay, so then I'm confused how we have the same levy, but we split the project in half and move 1.7 million to a different year
Then if,
with no
with no
obvious
additions.
financial
So tonight,
change.
if there are no additions, where we have a transfer to, a transfer for CIP from the fund balance, we'll reduce the
Got it.
transfer by 1.7 million.
Okay, so this was a fund balance paid project.
Yes,
Got
part
it.
of it, yes.
Okay, all right, makes sense. Yeah, okay, so I'll have to think about that too, then. How much do we have in the fund balance? Or how much will we project it as everything is, would we anticipate having in the fund balance start of next year?
The start of next year, I believe it was like 43 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how, is any of that earmarked for larger projects? I know we were talking about streetscape and
We only
things like
have 1 million earmarked.
that. Okay, okay. So then roughly 42 million fund
Yes.
balance, free and clear. And then what's our minimal that we need to keep for reserves? What's our reserve policy?
It should be around, our reserve policy, it's about 15% or a little, somewhere in there. But, right now, if you want to take any money out of the fund balance, you shouldn't take anything below, you should leave about 20 million in there.
Got it.
And so what I've been telling the finance committee, though, as we go out for bonds, the more we have in the fund balance, the better.
Got it. Okay. Okay, and all right, so I'll ask you this question later. Okay. Okay, I think that answers all of my questions. I'm not yet sure where I stand on this one, though. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you all. Appreciate the information.
So just a quick one. I know we talked about this very recently, but any more updates on when we can expect the Q3 revenue numbers and other expenditures?
We're reviewing the report now, and so you will be able to, it will be emailed out to the board on Monday.
Right, so, but does it look like we're going to meet goal in terms of approaching this year, what we said was going to be the?
So far, yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Glad to hear that. So revenues are strong?
Yeah, you remember, when you see, even when you see Q4,
Yes.
we're booking receivables, because we still get revenues we'll still get revenues through March,
Right.
for this year.
For the back. Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this time? Okay, Village Manager Jackson? Is there, can we review the timeline?
Yeah, President Scaman, I mean, we had one additional change. There was a recommendation from the Finance Committee to advance an overhire ordinance for board consideration to hire 6 additional firefighters. Assistant Village Manager, HR Director Kier Chang can explain what the staff's recommendation was on that in response to the interest from the Finance Committee.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kira Chang, Assistant Village Manager, HR Director. So as Manager Jackson mentioned at the Finance Committee last Thursday, November 13th, staff suggested and the Finance Committee ultimately recommended that the village use an overhire program in order to meet its intended public safety goals while also allow for both greater flexibility in terms of understanding of our financials and so I just want to talk a little bit about what an overhire is, how that works, and then some of the benefits of approaching it in this way. An overhire is a program that is commonly found in public safety environment where there are both
staffing levels that are authorized by the budget, but also that there are minimum staffing requirements in order to provide 24/7 public safety services. And so the village, over the past 8 or 9 years, has, with some regularity, adopted overhire ordinance with the intent of being able to ensure public safety staffing levels are met without needing to add additional positions permanently to the budget. These overhired positions are typically funded through salary savings in the case of planned retirements or attrition or vacancies due to long-term absences, or through overtime savings, because the cost of calling an employee back to fill a position is typically 1.5 times their regular wage. And so at some point it can become less expensive to hire a full-time employee in lieu of continual use of that overtime. So in the case of the fire department, the board can set a goal to hire 6 firefighter paramedics over and beyond what is budgeted in fiscal year 26. These positions would be funded through a combination of salary savings and overtime savings. And so the benefit of this is that it avoids increasing the levy prematurely or unnecessarily, and it creates a pilot environment where in real time, the village can assess the impact to service delivery. So how are the added firefighters enhancing safety and security across the village? The village can see real-time impact to overtime savings. So the goal is certainly to add these firefighters in the interest in reducing injury rates and recall of our firefighter paramedics who are currently being taxed in terms of the number of calls that they're responding to. But maybe most importantly, the village can have some time to identify alternative revenue sources, including in particular the newly passed Illinois Transit Bill, which has come out, but there's not a lot of detailed analysis of what exactly that impact will be to the village. And we would love to be able to include those projections in a fiscal year 26 budget, but given the timing of that, it's unlikely that we would be able to do so. There are also a number of potential alternative revenue ideas that have been put forth both by the Baker-Tilly assessment and also in discussions at the Finance Committee in terms of fees and other sources of revenue based on the village's lens around equity, incorporating those as well. So the intent with this would be to have an overhire of those 6 firefighters. We would begin filling those as soon as we're able to in fiscal year 26. And then the board at any point would be able to make further decisions about the permanency of those positions. But you would have an opportunity to assess through that overhire program the effectiveness of the addition to the service level, the effectiveness of the addition to the overtime expense in the village, and also see that alternative revenue source projections as they come to us either from Springfield or through our own programming that the village may choose to adopt. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Chibi, thank you.
Not truly a question, just really appreciative of the thought process to go into it. I think, initially having the study, having the fireman study, but also being able to have, a solution that gives us an opportunity to assess where we're at now and looking at the future. I think that's the best we can really hope for, and I really think that that's a great solution looking forward and giving us time to see, without necessarily going into that levy and like you said, unnecessarily adding a shift, prematurely. So I think that that's a great utilization of already utilized funds. Or allocated funds. So, I appreciate that, and I think that that's a good way to look at that moving forward. So I think you all did a great job, and I appreciate it.
Okay, I'll just add, but anyone's free to jump in, that, again, appreciate, as was said in the Finance Committee, the work that staff has done to identify this path for us. And Chief, if there's anything further you want to share as well, you're more than welcome. But also that, our goal here is to properly support all staff, all departments, make sure people have the resources they need to feel like they're can do their job safely, and that we're meeting the expectations of the residents for service, not just in fire, but in all departments, but recognizing the strain that can fall particularly on our public safety personnel, fire and police. And so it does seem to be a very a good approach. Some of the cautionary comments that I heard from the Finance Committee is to make sure that this overhead process is adding and not supplementing for what might turn out to be retirements or other, our goal is to meet that over higher amount and be able to have enough time to assess the value. Please, Chief, anything further?
Thank you very much. Good evening, President Skaman and trustees. I'd just like to say thank you for the support that you've shown this department and all public safety this year and going forward, because it means a lot to all of us. And as we continue to work to make Oak Park a safer and happier place, it's appreciated. So thank you all very much for that.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee.
I just want to add that I really appreciate the collaborative approach that that we're reaching here. I think that staff's initiative in bringing forward this proposal, reflecting sort of the demand that was acknowledged by both of the staffing studies that we saw, and that's going to really provide us an opportunity to see how increased staffing will impact this persistent overtime issue that we've had. And I know we're undertaking a number of other initiatives that should help address the persistent overtime, and I think that it's important to understand that the persistently high overtime, we as a village generally are discussing it as a budgetary impact, and we've begun to more and more acknowledge the real impact it has on people's lives, because in some cases it's not just a 48-hour shift, but sometimes extending into a 72-hour shift, and that has a big impact on the lives of our firefighters, and can have an impact on the likelihood of injury. So I'm hopeful that we'll see the decreases in overtime, both from the short term, we just have more staffing, and from the long term, as reductions in overtime lead to reduction in the exhaustion that can lead to injury. So I'm hopeful that this, in combination with other initiatives that the department is putting forward, and I appreciate your leadership on those initiatives, Chief. I'm hoping that all of these things together is going to create a real a real surge forward in quality of life, and a real reduction in overtime over the course of the next year.
Jim.
I just want to add that I appreciate the approach recommended by staff here. I think it allows some flexibility and balance as we all work to build a safer and a better work environment for our firefighters, while also hopefully, reducing overtime and identifying new revenue sources and additional sources, both temporary and otherwise, in the future. It allows us some time to assimilate that and understand where those sources would come from. So overall, I think it's a very good approach, and thank you all for your efforts on that, to move this forward. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so that is our review of the 2026 fiscal year budget. Understanding that, tonight's not the vote. Tonight is actually the first time the full board is present for all of the dialogue related to how we got here right now. And so everyone deserves the opportunity to process and continue to ask questions. And then we will be coming back on December 2nd.
Correct.
And then that will be the public hearing.
Yeah, that will
Yeah,
be
if
the
you're-
public hearing and another opportunity for the board to weigh in on the budget
Correct, and then we'll be actually approving the budget
on December
on
9th.
December 9th. So there are two, although it is our goal, as it is every year, for what appears on the board agenda on December 9th to be reflective of where the board stands. Okay? All right. Then we have call to board and clerk. Clerk Waters, any comments for this evening for community?
Yes. So I just want to begin with deep gratitude of Cook County Commissioner Tara Stamps and Mary Gardner, the First District Women's Commissioner, for collaborating with the Village of Oak Park. Through the month of October, we collected donations at several locations, including Village Hall, for Period Action Day 2025. At its core, Period Action Day is also about breaking stigma. It invites communities, schools, and leaders to talk openly about menstrual cycles. Those donations we took over to Oak Park and River Forest High School on Friday, November 7th. It really was a meaningful opportunity to speak with students about ending period poverty and removing the stigma around conversations about menstrual cycles. Their insight and openness remind me why this work matters. I look forward to joining Commissioner Stamps at Proviso East High School tomorrow morning. I also want to recognize David Ikamika on hosting his second youth pop-up shop last Friday. David continues to create real space for youth entrepreneurs to shine. As the founder of Versatile Clothing Line, he encourages all of us to strive to be unique, and he is doing exactly that by lifting up young creators, artists, designers, and innovators through his events. His work is planting seeds for the next generation of Oak Park and Austin area leaders. For those who want to support or learn more, the Youth Entrepreneur Pop-Up Shop showcased youth-led brands, performances, guest speakers, and introduced the Youth Entrepreneur Network, also known as YEN, a nonprofit focused on business and mental wellness support for young people. And lastly, I just want to extend a heartfelt thanks to our partners who have come together to support tomorrow night's Community Friends Giving event through in-kind donations, monetary sponsorship, and providing services. Those sponsors are Build Chicago, the Chamber of Mothers Chicago chapter, Shatara Coleman, who is a nurse practitioner with Little Steps Pediatric, Your Passion First for providing activities for our teens, and the Collaboration for Early Childhood for providing childcare of our youngest friends, PCC Austin Wellness Center for its outstanding collaboration, Ms. Tiffany Drain, who is the Regional Council Manager of Region IBB from birth to 5 Illinois, again, Cook County Commissioner Stamps for collaborating and supporting, and Jessica and Jennifer from Westside United. Each has contributed time, care, or resources to ensure our families feel welcomed, supported, and celebrated. The Friendsgiving gathering will take place tomorrow night, Wednesday, November 19th, and is an opportunity for parents to share a meal, connect, and be in community together. And I just want to also thank everyone for continuing to serve, uplift, and connect with our residents and our neighbors. These partnerships strengthen us, and I'm grateful for the shared commitment to our children, our families, and our future.
Thank you. Trustee Enya.
Pass. Pass.
Pass.
I don't think we'll meet again before Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thursday.
Well, for
It's a special meeting, you're right.
special meeting, but look at.
We'll still take the happy Thanksgiving, thank you.
I would like to briefly reflect on two of the proclamations we heard tonight, recognizing hunger and homelessness, as well as transgender visibility, and how they're interconnected. So I just noted down that a third of transgender victims of homicide also experience housing insecurity or homelessness. The majority of those victims were killed with a gun. According to Everytown Research analysis of Transgender Homicide Tracker, of the victims whose housing status was known, 33% were homeless or housing insecure. Of those that were known to be homeless or housing insecure, 79% of those homicides were gun homicides. The disparities compound when we think about racial disparities, as 65% of transgender victims of gun homicide were Black trans women. That is significantly higher than the general population of gun homicide victims. So I appreciate that we take the time at our meetings to acknowledge and reflect our own values, and to think about how it's all interconnected is, I think, something to also keep in mind.
Thank you.
I'll be brief, just a thought. Isn't it weird how all of a sudden, like, ICE is not on our minds anymore? Well, it's on some of our minds, sure, but it feels like it just, a lot of people feel like they've just moved on. Like, oh, they left, and things are wound down, and it was a crazy time that we were having in Chicagoland, and still are. And I just want to remind everyone to take a moment to reflect on what just happened to us and what is happening now in other parts of the country, and how folks have learned from what Chicagoans and Oak Parkers have done to resist this invasion of our communities from federal officers. So they will be back very likely in the spring, is what they say. So I just want to remind folks to stay vigilant, and you probably made a lot of new connections. I sure did during that period of time. It was very stressful. But try to maintain those connections, because there's just a lot of strength that we've shown as a community in being able to band together. Folks are just running towards violence, running towards the things that they're seeing, and blowing whistles and doing everything they can to protect their neighbors from being abducted. So it was something that I think that a lot of folks really showed the best parts of our community. So I'm very grateful for that. It was also very traumatic for a lot of folks. But just thank you, everyone, for being part of that, and be prepared, because I don't think this is over. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Okay, and yes, we will see each other on Thursday, but happy to Thanksgiving for anyone who's listening. Also noting that on Saturday, November 29th, the Oak Park Police Department will mark the 1-year anniversary of the tragic murder of Detective Alan Reddins by holding a ceremony at the Village Hall courtyard. Attendees are asked to arrive by 9:45 a.m. with the ceremony starting promptly at 10:10 a.m. His death was the first in the line of duty for a sworn member of the police department since 1938. Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Second, aye.
Thank you.
Close enough.